The next irreverent section by title is there mucus in paradise? And this is a sweet poem. The first stanza is in Spanish, and because the first stanza is so important, it's a very short poem, I'm going to read it slowly and translate it. It's, you can't explain goodness, and it really is my attempt to say what goodness is and isn't. It's four lines, four stanzas, 4 lines each. The first stanza, los primeros gauchos eran criminales que se escapaban de las ciudades. Los primeros gauchos, the first cowboys, eran criminales, were criminals, que se escapaban, who escaped de las ciudades, from the city. So that's very important. So here's the whole poem. Los primeros gauchos eran criminales, que se escapaban de las ciudades. Goodness is an outlaw, always unfashionable, always a miracle. Meanwhile, evil men remain organized. The devil says there are at least 2 of everything. And then this poem, what it means to be a professional today. I should say, I wasn't going to say it. I'm a psychologist, and I've had a huge problem all my life with the medical model and human experience, human subjectivity being reduced to the brain so that we become things. And I know psychiatrists don't think people are things, but typically science does that, and we're biochemically this and that, and of course we are, but if we're just that, I've had a huge problem my whole professional life with that. So that's in this, that's why there's an irony here about being a professional today. What it means to be a professional today. The identities of the victims are not known. 10 juries are sifting the evidence. There is no sadness, but the fear of sadness. There is no despair, but the distraction from despair. There is no suffering, but the avoidance of suffering. We're living in bad times, biochemically speaking. It's like shaving a king who is already dead. It's like holding many keys in both hands. We ask if there is mucus in the other world. We know there are poisons. Did God make the poisons? Cancer was discovered in his retirement exam, biochemically speaking. Our legs are shaking in paradise. Our eggs still shaking in paradise. We are unable to speak, barely able to stand. Hiding behind irony with irony, we ask how we can forget what Darwin really said, biochemically speaking. Why do I feel that I should call an ambulance, biochemically speaking? Okay, so I think this time is working out. The next section is a Latin, homo homini lupus est. Man is a man to himself.
And you preface that with Aladdin? Is that what you just said?
No, I said that homo homini.
Oh, okay.
Lupus est, man to himself is a wolf. It's hard to translate that literally, but man is a wolf to man. That's the simplest way to translate that. And I'm not like a Latin scholar, but I'm familiar with phrases that's a telling phrase. Homo homini lupus est, man is a wolf to man. There's some truth in that. So some of these poems were published. My first big publication was in the American Poetry Review in 2005. The poem I'm going to read, Going to Hell and Ixion, and then later, How It Will End, those 4 poems were published and one other in the American Poetry Review. That's kind of did a kickstart to my wanting to write a book. So here's going to hell. Traveling through the frozen mud between cigarettes, teeth and bones suspended in the ice, we watch the fish when the devil comes. There is no singing, there is no dancing. It's dark in the machine. His name is my name too. Returning on our bloody knees every Monday, hamburger for lunch, wiping our mouths with paper napkins, or the mantis eating the head of her mate during intercourse. See the pictures for yourself. Killing is bad luck without an audience. Paul's gone. Do you remember Joe Palooka? With death at the end, there is no singing, there is no dancing. Should we clap in love class? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Watch the fish when the devil comes. Bumping heads in the night wagon, his name is your name too. Why not kill one another? Or the god of the philosophers singing in German, Schlafen Sie gut. When hope is gone, so goes the air we breathe. I dreamed of Hiroshima. I dreamed of Dresden. I dreamed of Auschwitz-Birkenau. I dreamed of My Lai. Is that our link letter? Is it time to wake up in this system of hate? Swallow the bee before it stings your tongue. No sign of Christ. Exuent omnes. Tennis, anyone? Gut, Matze, in Strabo, Hiba, Hiba. His name is our name too. And here's Ixion, another poem was published in. Ixion is one of the first, maybe after Cain, a Greek figure that killed, I have it here, killed his kin. He's one of the first human beings to shed kindred blood, invited by his father-in-law to come and collect the price that Ixion owed him for his bride. He makes a pit camouflaged with burning coals that the father-in-law falls into. So Ixion, a figure in Greek mythology, is a murderer. Ixion, someone is always dying of cancer. Someone is always reading the New York Times. After your mother died, we found love letters in the attic. I know, she was tortured in the camps. Do you remember those once white hands? Do you still recognize yourself in your European skin? But it's not worth crying about. It's not worth crying about now. The savage had turned humanist. Then the humanist returned to savage again. Returned through dream time to Eve's original apple, already from the beginning, spoiled brown with worms, nullifying en route in the backward careening fall, his vision of Michelangelo's David, his orbs now swimming with maggots, this phenomenon once and forever established as reality by an Argus-eyed and exacting science. Cain murdered Abel, and he has remained Cain, or Ixion, or Hitler, or Stalin, or Mao, or Pol Pot, the prodigal son returning home to murder his family. Now all of us are bound upon a wheel of fire. We are all sons of bitches now. But it's not worth crying about. It's not worth crying about now. Now that bound upon a wheel of fire is actually something King Lear, the character, speaks to Cordelia when he's out of the hovel and reborn. And he says, you do me wrong to take me out o' the grave. Thou art a soul in bliss, he says to Cordelia. But I am bound like Ixion, but I am bound upon a wheel of fire that mine own tears do scald like molten lead. Yeah, this poem, I actually have three other poems to read, and I think I have time to do that. Right? Little louder? Okay, louder. Pouring salt on the wound. In this cellular moment, this eternity among strangers, you see yourself in bits and pieces impossible to describe. Like raw red meat wrapped in plastic, this love so demeaning, or Charles Darwin pouring salt on the wound. You barely recognize a little boy fully in control, ranting and raving as you look into his cunningly mad dog eyes. In the pornographic halls of Mr. and Mrs. America, in the pornographic halls, you are running as fast as your little legs will carry you. Thank you, sir. Is there anything else, sir? You are bleeding, sir. More applause. Instruments of the devil are better and stronger than this human flesh. Buried in shallow graves because you deal in volume here, give us another happy lie about the other happy lies. Why don't you get a PhD before the start of World War III? Thank you, Paine-Webber. After the bombing, the children put too many things into their mouths, causing their little tummies to bulge and swell. In Western Europe, NATO leaders have many times inquired, did Jimmy Carter have a normal childhood? How do you spiritualize urine? Impatient diplomats demanded to know. Meanwhile, starving children feed on their dead siblings, buried in shallow graves. Your little white plastic knives can't begin to cut through their shit. There's smoke in the valley, distorting shapes in the shame and disharmony of the early yellow light. Snakes and dogs are chasing people. Baptists in resurrection attire with babies dressed as rabbits find uncommon beauty in the Easter parade. You strip the cadaver for the truth. In the 21st century, you need a license to see people. Square shoulders then turn to crime. The Northern European, whose object relations are seriously disturbed, easily becomes the secular beast with blood pouring out both ears. Nuns read newspapers. Dogs bark and dig near shallow graves. You can see, oh yes, you can see monkey faces in this diesel night. They beat you, then they washed you down, then they beat you again. Phlegm and mercy, they drive fast in the sun. What do the flutes say? Give it all away. Give it all away. Chorus. Deep is the water in the cold mountain stream. Deep is the water in the cold mountain stream. Give it all away. Give it all away.